what this talk is not about. Let's see a video. This is the physical security of cars. For all those who are not aware of these videos, you can find it on YouTube. It's, I think the title is 3 Inventive Ways to Break into Cars. Oh, it's just a minute, I'll play it with VLC. I think it looks better. So, the whole idea is that the physical layer of the car can easily be breached, and what will happen next? Some lubricant, and then you go. At any time. You just pump it and there you go. This video is on YouTube for about 2 or 3 years. This is one way. Next way. And the last one. Okay. So, this is what happens in the physical layer. So one may scratch your car, break the window, enter the car, as we've seen, steal a parcel, put fire on your car, or damage it in any way. The big question is, how can he steal a whole car if he hasn't a tow truck? The obvious answer is by starting the engine. So what does stop someone from starting the engine? Most of you will say the key. Let's try to see what happens inside the car. So, the general agenda of this talk is this. We will first talk about the automotive technology. We will compare vehicle and computers. We will talk about the network inside a vehicle and talk about the main security aspect of the car, which is its immobilizer. Then we will talk about some vulnerabilities, not like these ones, some problems that the immobilizer technology has, some research that has been done from several researchers, and some concerns. Then we will talk about what we can do in order to patch some of these things. So, automotive industry has 4 main axes of interest. The body of the car, the powertrain, the safety. When we're talking about the safety, we're talking about the passengers mostly. And 4 is the in-car communication and car-to-car communication and things like that. This even has to do with multimedia and telematics. There's an escalated artificial intelligence system approach towards automotive control systems that has to do a lot with performance, safety, functionality of the car, the network, and even the distributed embedded systems that are inside the car. The big truth is that current vehicles are turning more and more into computers, and we don't see this trend towards their technology in the basis. So, what we want to see in vehicles is their information system from the eyes for the attack or the defense. There are multiple network ECUs, electronic control modules. There are energy and information networks inside the car. There are some time-triggered protocols that are being used. There are some network protocols like CAN, LIN, MOST that are inside the car. There are numerous electronics, very complex, like sensors and actuators that give us measurements about the car, the fuels, and things like that. There's the mobilizer unit that its core is RFID technology, and we have the real-time diagnostics port that we can program the car for many things. Moreover, vendors are trying to push the green technology, the so-called grid technology, and put the car on the cloud. It's the new hype. So, let's compare vehicles and computers. So, the vehicle from the first part, its hardware. Its hardware part is designed to perform a specific task. We have a CPU, a memory, a power supply, mainly from a battery, which is charged from petrols, things like that other times. We use it in order to control the peripherals, and we have several communication protocols and channels to talk to the electronic control modules. What we're trying to do is to maintain the vehicle stability, to have a good performance on the vehicle, and to keep passengers safe. What is the wanted result? Mainly to control the mechanic part of the vehicle, to make a good network platform, we'll talk about it later, and afterwards make it more computerized. So, the computer is consisting of a motherboard, a CPU, memory, some storage devices, and its operating system. In both cases, we have a logic circuit, physical implementation of all these parts, which are interconnected between them, and each part is designed to perform a specific set of tasks. The tasks are described through a machine language program, even if it's assembly or anything like that. Their main differences is between the complexity of the tasks that they are performing and in their design. We have to make another big difference between computer parts and vehicle parts, because vehicle parts are heavy duty. We will take it on the road, and there are a lot of bumps, and you may crash a little your car and things like that. So their parts have to be heavy duty, remnant, and long lived. So let's move to the network layer of the car. So, in most cases, we can refer it and we see it as a local area network. We have point-to-point wiring, centralized networks, which are being replaced constantly with distributed networks, and we have some serial protocols for reducing vehicle mass wiring. There is even optical fiber inside the car in order to have high bandwidth applications installed on the car, mostly about multimedia and telematics, and in order to have internet access on the car, because everything is secure. So we wanted to put it on the internet. Moreover, there are wireless application protocols in order to talk wirelessly to the car. There are 4 main classifications of the vehicle for its buses. We have Class A, Class B, and Class C networks, and another class for the emissions and diagnostics of the car. I will go briefly to the most important communication protocols that are embedded in the cars. We have LIN, CAN, TT-CAN, MOST, ODB, and things like that. So, LIN, Local Interconnect Network. SAI, IEEE 1394, CAN, we'll talk specifically about it, and TT-CAN and MOST. What's common in all of them, even in ODB2 on FlexRay, is that they perform on the first 3 layers of OSI. This means that we don't have, for example, a complete, in the RFC of CAN, we don't have anything about security. The 3 first layers of OSI do not offer complete security to our applications. And especially about CAN, we will talk and see some vulnerabilities that can be hacked. So what is the immobilizer? The immobilizer is the main anti-theft mechanism installed in our cars. It's we could say the only authentication that we have in our car. We have a key that it has, in most cases, RFID installed, and we take this key, put it on the lock and turn it. If we have the right combination of the lock and the RFID, okay, then it issues an electronic palm and the engine goes on. So, in most cases, we have RFIDs with fixed or rolling code systems or combined rolling system. We should say that in the past, we had only fixed codes. This means that we could have replay attacks on the keys. So you could record the radio frequency and start the engine. And as we'll see, we can have DOS attacks inside. Moreover, in most cases, they use some symmetrical algorithms. Many of them are not known, and when they are disclosed, we can see that they have a lot of problems. So their encryption capabilities are very low. So, first type of attacks. The first type of attack is breaking in on the car. You can hotwire it. We have seen it in all the movies. Someone is breaking somewhere down the steering wheel and connects some cables, and the engine is on, and off he goes with the car. Of course, the tools that are being used are very gentle, like slide hammers, spare wires, Slim Jim tool, in order to open the doors and things like that. We see that even though the technology is evolving, we see that the attacks are also evolving in the cars, and if they're computerized, they may be automated. So, what's the problem with the immobilizer? The only way to authenticate to your car is through your RFID, as I said, and the key. The first problem is that who owns the key? And what can you do with your key? You have your car, and it's like a computer. In your computer, you have users, groups, and you have specific tasks that each user can do. If you own the key, you can do everything you want to the car. even if you are the mechanic, if you are the driver, if you have rented the car, or whatever you are. You can have full access to the car. That's the main problem. Moreover, there's no way to identify the driver through the RFID. And something that is very critical here, but the security of the car, is that it doesn't support mutual identification. So, just a minute. There is a project, RFID Zapper, which is making RFID tags dead. What if I use the RFID Zapper on the keys? Imagine that I could zap a whole police department's keys or the ambulances and things like that, pretending that I'm somebody who has direct access, and nobody can use the cars. So we have to say that using RFID today is at least dangerous. From the Homeland Security Newswire, we have that they propose the use of AES in 128 bits. Recently, Kirsten Knoll has identified many vulnerabilities in engine immobilizer. They used a proprietary encryption algorithm in order to transmit the keys between the receiver and the transmitter, and you could hack it in a few seconds. And you can find it more data about his talk. The link is right there. There's another attack from cryptographic for the cryptographic aspect of it about the key lock algorithm. It was supposed to be a very good algorithm on performing on 30-bit blocks, and it had a 64-bit key. It was used in order to send not a fixed key, but a rolling key to the car in order to identify yourself. It was broken again at 208. Sorry. Keylock is being used again by many industries. Oh, I had a slide for RFID Zapper. Okay. So what other researchers have said? There's the Center of Automotive Embedded System of System Security, CAS, has made a very good research about cars. What they did in their first work was to evaluate modern automobiles and talk about how fragile and how insecure they are. In their demos, they infiltrated an ECU. They managed to leverage the ability to completely circumvent a broad array of safety critical systems of the car and control a wide range of automotive functions and make the car to ignore driver's actions. They had several cars in order to do this stuff. And what was their main consideration? Can an adversary with malicious motive modify, disrupt systems in commercially available automobiles? Of course, their answer was yes. They tried to see through the eyes of a hacker and try to find a path in order to communicate directly with a car. This could be done via physical access, plugging some devices on the ODB port in order to program it, and using the wireless interfaces that are used by the cars nowadays. What they managed to do was the methodology that they used was fuzzing, sniffing, trying to see the code, because in all these cases the code is closed. You don't have access to the operating systems. The vendors are not giving anything away. They tried to connect to the CAN and achieved many things. So, some of their main conclusions is that CAN, the whole technology behind CAN, has many vulnerabilities, especially against DOS attacks. You can stop many packets from receiving and transmitting between the devices of the car. Moreover, there's no authentication fields. As I said, CAN has in its RFC doesn't have any security measures as a recommendation. Moreover, everyone in most cases can gain easily access to the ECU, the main processing unit of the car. They had a second research which resulted in remote exploitation of all this stuff, and using wireless communication, for example, GPS, GPRS, they managed to extract data from the cars, or even send triggers to the car, for example, unlock the doors. So, this work does not reflect specific classes of threats, but in the entire platform named Automobile. We can see that the car has a very wide range of attacks that can be made against it. The main aspect is that vendors have a tendency towards putting services on top of the cars, services that are not implemented on a secure platform. This means that we have the hype to put the car on the cloud, to put web services on the cloud, regardless of what is happening down on the core. So, moreover, you can gain access using the OBD port through the car and make direct access, direct commands to the car. There are several attacks that can be made using Bluetooth. There was a talk yesterday, if I can remember, about Bluetooth and pairing devices and things like that. In cars nowadays, new cars nowadays, are having Bluetooth devices installed, sensors that are sending the pressure of the tires to the ECU in order to trigger a flat tire event. It is easy to pair a fifth tire on the car and say you have a flat tire and make the car or the driver stop. It's quite easy, as they've showed, in order to make a keyless entry. In their attack, they didn't disclose the vendor of the car. They managed to use the GPS location, the GPRS location, and the GPS, an installed phone on top of that. Most of the companies are now saying that you can install a tablet or use the phone on your car, so you have an access point there. And using the phone or the tablet, you can issue a trigger event saying, open the door. Moreover, they were able to wipe and to burn RFIDs, to use the Wi-Fi of the car, get the location of the car, and make several attacks using the short-range communications of the car. So, the results of the research was that you can steal a car, you may put surveillance on the car and compromise the driver. You could issue a brake event and halt the car remotely because you had full access to the car. So, in the light of this research, the US Department of Transportation issued a warning, a request for information, more officially, saying that cars are being, we believe that will be the next attack platform for the hackers, and this was this summer, and we have to find ways in order to defeat those attacks. We need to make cars more reliable and more safe regarding to their electronic system. One of the phrases that they use is that the problem is known and still there is no interest. Autos are one of the main key players in automotive industry regarding to electronics. Has issued an article this year, and it's pointing out the problems and about ECU and how one can reach ECU quite easily. And what they're pointing out is that the mobilizer isn't quite safe as we thought it was. McAfee, again on the summer of this year, has issued a white paper on the possible dangers with cars that can be easily pwned. So what do we propose? What we need to do is currently redefine the immobilizer system. We think that we cannot do many changes that can be easily applied by the market current days, and what we're trying to do is create a more safe environment for the electronic modules of the car and the vehicles generally. We have to create a new accept and deny policy towards almost all peripherals and modules that can be installed in a vehicle. What we mean is that most of the devices that can be installed on the car are plug and play. So in many cases, one might enter the car, install a new device, and go. There is an attack that can be made through an MP3 player. For example, there was an attack that one could create a malicious MP3 and play it on that player and gain full access to the ECU. So what we're trying to say is that you shouldn't allow so easily for someone to install devices on your car. Yes, it's easy, and it should be easy for the mechanics, but if someone can do it in 5 minutes without any authentication, he might install a malicious and vulnerable device inside it and trigger an attack against you. So we would rather a deny all policy towards the parts and make them all authenticate towards the car, the vehicle generally, in order to gain access. We should enable users and groups to the cars in order to make each user of the car have different privileges on the car. Let's think this over. I am the owner of the car.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I have a key.
Yes.
Okay, should I be able to install everything that I want? If you say yes, imagine what would happen if I lose the key.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If it's the vendor If I have a problem with a car, I give you the key and you're the technician. Should you have the right to go from here to Germany? What stops you? You're a different user. You said you should have different access. So we should have different keys.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the segmentation of rights and abilities is fine. We can talk about it later. I mean, but when you segment and you implement a policy, there will be someone who takes this responsibility of implementing this policy and someone who controls this policy.
Currently, I would say the vendors.
I'm not agreeing on that. That's my point.
We're talking to
We can talk about
the.
it later.
Let's say what I'm thinking is that all of us want to have direct access and do whatever we want to our machines. That's for sure. But we don't want this to happen to everyone. Because imagine that everyone is creating an administrator user to their computers. This would create many problems. In many cases, for example, I forgot my bag on the car, and I give the keys to my daughter in order to get them. Should she have complete access to the car? No. The same happens if you want to rent a car, and you're renting the car to someone, and you say that, okay, you can use the car in Austria, wherever you want. You cannot take the car and leave the country. So you have to have different access levels to everyone. Currently, the cars are having GPS. So let's use it in order to make some policies. In some countries, you can give the car to your kid and you say you're 16, you're not allowed to go there. Okay, don't allow it. Create an account and don't make him leave the designated area. Or if you want, okay, we'll talk about it later. So, what we will try to use, what we will try to patch with our proposal, the authentication of the parts and the authentication of the users. We will create users and groups for the cars, monitor the in-vehicle traffic, and try to drop possible harmful packets and create a policy that can be updatable through the internet more easily. How can we do it? We would like to convert the MCU to a trusted third party, where all parts of the car will be mutually authenticated using the MCU. Each part of the car, even if it's the MP3 player or the steering wheel, should be authenticated to the car. I don't want people to install a new unsigned MP3 player, a new brake system on the car without being authenticated. We shouldn't allow easily hot wiring devices and make them work on the car. We should make the parts of the car categorized to primary and secondary. I don't have any problem with the power windows, but if they're broken, the whole car should be working. So we have to divide what's vital and what's not. Let's make some of the parts primary and some secondary. So if a primary part, for example, the steering wheel, has a problem, it's not being authenticated, the car shouldn't start. It shouldn't allow me to drive it. If it's a problem with the power window, okay, I can live without it, but I will have to block all the traffic from it because it isn't authenticated, either because it is malfunctioning or because somebody has done something tricky with that. So, MCU should have an installed database with all public keys from the vendors, which can be updated. And this database should be updatable only by the vehicle vendor. All the parts should have certificates and should be checked every time, and the car is trying to be to start the car every time we want to start the car. And moreover, it should be used, how much is it? 10? Okay. And every time and during our driving, because in many cases the attack could be launched during our driving experience. So, moreover, we should create a record, a profile for each car on the vendor with its hardware and software profile. Doing it, we could create a more secure environment for the cars. We could trigger events for sudden and peculiar changes. We could make the changes work only if there's a connection, direct connection to the internet, in order to get new certificates and things like that. The advantages of this approach is that we can take more control of the vehicle and don't leave it to the others. We can restrict the tampering of the vehicles from malicious entities and restrict people from installing valuable devices on the fly. We can restrict the general attack to surface of the vehicle. So, some examples in order to make this approach clearer. Why should a non-authenticated brake should stop the vehicle? We could install a new device apart from the current braking system that's not authenticated. Should it issue a brake signal? What should the engine start if the only thing that is received is the power and no authentication signal? I'm referring to hot wiring, because someone would could just break the immobilizer system, bypass the whole wires, and just hot wire the engine and get away with the car. Should we let someone install a new MP3 player at 2 o'clock in the evening and make it play the malicious song, as I said before? Is it possible to install a new MCU to the car wherever I may be? I have parked the car outside my home, and suddenly someone is installing a new device on the car. It's a new MCU. Should the car start? Is there a reason for letting people install new devices in the middle of nowhere? Someone has used a tow truck and taken my car, and I'm seeing that someone is trying to change the devices inside. Should I let him? When I was talking about the user, someone is pretending to be the mechanic. Should I let him? And if we're talking about the whole thing about letting people fix my car, I can think that we're in 2011. Everyone should have internet. If you have a garage and you're fixing cars, you can afford at least an internet connection. It doesn't have to be with high bandwidth. So, we were talking about user accounts, and I should show this. For example, some user accounts, a technician, he cannot drive the car for more than 20 kilometers. If he has to do it, he must if he has to move it for more, he should have a tow truck. You have a young driver. You can use the car for a distance at most 20 kilometers. and you can use it in special areas. If you're renting the car, okay, you can use the car here in Austria or here in Europe. You cannot export the car. Or you have paid for the GPS system. You cannot use the MP3. You have used both. You cannot plug devices and things like that. You can implement policies on what you're selling and what you're renting. Some other measurements that we can use in order to make it more secure. Install an application or a content firewall or an IDS or an IPS system in the car. Many packets that, as I've said, are malicious. There's nobody blocking them. The devices are directly talking to the ECU, and the ECU will do anything. We should have a mechanism in order to detect these packets, in order to block some devices, the unauthenticated, and prevent the privilege escalation from devices and users. This is the feedback that we got when we tried to send the proposal to the academia. The use of firewall seems not well motivated. Why does the use of firewall secure communication? This is the feedback that we got from people who are in the vehicle industry and talking about the new cars. The role of the firewalls is to secure communication between entities, but how it is exactly achieved is not clear from the paper. This is from someone that will create the new vehicles. He doesn't know what would someone do with a firewall. And the general case is that yes, in some people are not ready yet in order to implement all the stuff. Conclusions. The general implementation of our approach is not a panacea, and it's a step towards more secure vehicles, and we think that we should adopt more computerized policies. Vehicles are turning into computers, but we don't treat them as ones, even if it's about the application that we want to install. Our approach enables a centralized environment for vehicles and software management. So, we should regard modern vehicles as computers and not just mechanic parts that can have a mobile computer on top of them. Attaching devices and installing applications on computers is dangerous, generally. It's currently a bad idea to have web services on vehicles and put the whole vehicle on the cloud, which is a big hype nowadays, and everyone is saying, okay, I want to put new services on the car in order to use the GPS and the GPRS and tell you that there's a good store down there, very close to you. You should go there and buy this stuff and this stuff. The whole reason is that the platform is not secure yet. We haven't studied yet. It is vital to redefine the role of the immobilizer as a security mechanism. It's the only one that we have. We should make it more clearer, more secure. It should have other features as well. We should reconsider the general automotive security regarding to the computer part, and reconsider drivers and accessories authentication to the vehicle as an entity. Plug and play is fine, but what happens when you plug and play anything that everyone who has access, direct access to the car, is putting? All this should be made without losing on the easy operation, the functionality of the car, without losing on performance or the passenger safety, of course. We should convince car makers to adopt the new systems, policies, and inform and educate developers of the dangers and the possible exploits of the cars. Thank you.